Okay, well, welcome back, everyone, and thanks again for being here on the Trig Podcast with Joey and GOZO TV. And I'm recording actually here in my kitchen, and it's late at night here on, I guess it's Tuesday morning, excuse me. But you know how there's just times in your life where you kind of have clarity on the next steps. And of course, you're not 100% sure. It could just be that you got excited or inspired, or maybe you're just, up late thinking like I am right now. But you can't help it. And so that's what this podcast is about. And really, in some ways, it's nothing new in terms of what I want to talk about. But as I said, it's just a little bit of clarity. So you may know that I've been doing this podcast now for about 10 years, called the Trig Podcast of Joy. And you've also maybe seen my live streams or my videos on GOZO TV and GOZO this and No GOZO and GOZO Nation and all this GOZO stuff, right? It's not GOZO, by the way. It's GOZO, like with an S. And you may not know what that is all about. You may just know that it means joy in Spanish. Maybe you'll even know that it's based on Psalm 36, where it says, though there is pain in the night, joy comes in the morning, GOZO. But really, it goes deeper than that. And it's really something that I want to maybe explain and to perhaps inspire other people to join this idea in this cause. Really, the idea of GOZO TV and of the Trig Podcast of Joy is mental health. That really is what it's about. It's rooted in my story as a man who is a follower of Jesus, who's a creative, entrepreneurial, and who is not afraid to talk about fear, anxiety, depression, and what we now consider mental health. I'm kind of whispering a bit, by the way, because it is late. I'm trying not to wake everybody up. I had to record this even though it's so late at night. But I think the clarity and the purpose of this podcast has become even more important to me the last maybe 2 years, 3 years, because of what's happened in the church politically as well as with the pandemic. And I especially have a heart for creatives, musicians, artists, entrepreneurial types. And they could be young people, they could be older, but I especially enjoy talking to younger people because that's another thing that's been so encouraging the last maybe 5 years, 10 years. Younger people have been very uninhibited to talk about fear and depression, suicidal thoughts, and a lot of this stuff, PTSD and fear and loneliness. But what's happened is the stigma that has been around, and it's still around for many people, I think it's maybe 10 times stronger for those of us who are people of faith, especially Christians, because and especially as creatives, because we're supposed to basically pray our problems away, or we go to therapy and we have maybe the tools that we need, or maybe medication or things like that, but we still can't find the relief that we long for. And so we're a lot of times stuck in this in-between place of feeling guilty for not being as driven or as successful as other people. And so, or we feel like we don't have enough faith, that if we only prayed enough or knew more Bible verses or were a better Christian, then we wouldn't deal with these things. And so whatever our age, young, old, whatever it is, midlife, we then are basically stuck. Either we hide these things or we go to therapy and we get help, but we don't really bring the two worlds together. And there definitely aren't enough brands, let's say, or influencers that are talking about these things within the Christian world, and especially within the creative Christian world. And so now, as I said, what's great and what's positive is that there are a lot of people like Demi Lovato and hundreds of others, maybe not hundreds, but many others who are in the creative space, singers and musicians and artists and poets and writers who are talking more openly about mental health. But in the Christian world, you still have this huge, as I said, this stigma. And that's why the Trig Podcast with Joy was birthed. That's why I started this podcast 10 years ago. And it's been a difficult journey, but it's been, I know, very, very useful, very effective. First in my life, and then second in the lives of those who listen. If you are a listener, thank you for being here. And I know that many people that listen to this podcast, that's why you listen, because of the honesty. I don't have a lot of guests, but maybe we'll begin to have more guests. But this is all what we're doing here. And, we don't have any hats per se or t-shirts, but all that is coming, the apparel and the music and the podcast, of course, is going to continue to grow. We do have the GOZO mugs, so I shouldn't say we don't have anything, but we don't have a Shopify or things like that where you can get merch or hoodies or I don't know, wear t-shirts that say, though there's pain in the night, GOZO comes in the morning. I mean, there's this whole thing about the business side of GOZO TV and the Trig Podcast of Joy and GOZO, the GOZO Nation, that I think can be very effective, because that's a way for us to basically to fund our ministry and our mission and to refer people to therapists and to doctors and to people that have the training. I'm not a therapist, and so I am a licensed life coach in the area of mental health, but there are people who know a lot more than I do. And so, but the point is that everything that I've been doing and many people that follow and listen to this podcast, we're about the same thing. We want to be free. We want to have joy. We want to have GOZO. But we also want to be honest that this isn't an overnight thing, that many of us might suffer from these things for the rest of our lives, or maybe not, or maybe we go in and out of it. And I want to create a safe place here for you, and to continue to do that, that's why this podcast, to continue to clarify and verbalize to you what this is about, and to expect more music, podcast, guests on this podcast, videos, maybe some courses, and as I said, merchandise, so that you can wear, imagine if you could wear a t-shirt that says, I love Jesus and therapy, or something like, I am a GOZO, I'm part of the GOZO Nation. And to explain to people, what is that? What is GOZO? What is that about? And to say to them, it's not GOZO, it's GOZO. And it's not like Bozo the Clown, it's GOZO. And then to explain to them that you have a story to tell, and that the reason why you're wearing the shirt or the hoodie or the socks or whatever it may be is because you suffer from mental health issues, and yet you're trusting God. You have a psychologist, you have a therapist, you have maybe an app that helps you. You have, of course, a pastor, a friend, a support group. Maybe you came out of drugs and alcohol. Maybe you came out of fear and anxiety and depression. And you can tell people about the value and the importance of being open, and to not to feel like you have to be strong or you have to be perfect because you're a Christian or because you're a musician, or maybe you feel guilty, or you think, well, I'm just another depressed musician who should know better, but here I am depressed or anxious or fearful or lonely or feeling whatever it is. And instead of hiding that or feeling like you have to push through it, my vision, our heart, is to open up the gates, the floodgates of this, so that we can come together and really support each other and have this podcast be a resource, so that you don't have to hide. Maybe someone will say something in a way that will help you verbalize what you feel to your parents, to your pastors, to your friends, to yourself, most of all. And the music and the videos and the apparel and whatever we may do, maybe a conference. I've done conferences, I've written articles, but it's been like 8-9 years. So whatever may come of this in the future, maybe in 2022, that we can come together and to enjoy God and to enjoy each other, but in an atmosphere of honesty and of shared stories and of common struggles and of common joys, and that we can find or provide a place for young and old, anyone, especially creatives, as I said, and artistic types, entrepreneur types, leader types, achievers, to come together with our faith and our Bible in one hand, our guitar or our microphone, but then with our medication or with our support group on the other hand, and to be able to say, this is my story. This is who I am, and I don't have any shame. In fact, we want to tell our story so that other young people, other Trigs and other Carloses and other Marys will find the help and the support that they need. And this is what I've been doing for so long, and sometimes it maybe comes in and out of the top of my mind or the front of mind, but this is what I know I've been committed to for so many years, and I want to just clarify that as we head into this holiday season, especially because we've been through so much as a nation, as a globe, in the areas of loneliness and sadness and depression. And this is not the time to hide. Instead, this is the time to say, me too. I am in the same boat. I trust Jesus. I love him. I want to serve, but I deal with these things. And whether it's someone who is just beginning to realize this, or someone who's been around this for a long time, someone who maybe doesn't think it's that bad, or maybe you have someone in your family, in your life, your parents who, quote, was worse. It doesn't matter. It's not about comparing or being ashamed, or even not adding to the stress of your home, so that no one, maybe you feel like if you talk about your own mental health process and struggles, you're adding to the burden. But really, the best thing that you and I can do is to open up our hearts and to talk about our needs and how we feel, and ideations and issues of fear and anxiety, so that we can find healing together and support one another. And that way our songs and our ministry and our marriages and our friendships will be even stronger. And if you feel depressed because you're not finishing school, how do we deal with that? Well, only through relationship and prayer and conversation and therapy and having all these things be combined, nutrition and working out, and not having be all separate, or, as I said, hiding some things from God or yourself or people that you love. And then how fun would it be to have hats and t-shirts and all the rest, so that we can actually do something great and create a brand that is global and have amazing guests on here. Wouldn't it be great to have Justin Bieber? I think that he seems to be now a follower of Jesus, and he's dealt with stuff. Imagine if he could come on the podcast and talk about his faith, and yet how his brokenness is still a part of his life. I think all those things, it doesn't have to be Justin Bieber, it could be someone local. But my point is that we want people to tell their stories. And so right now I'm doing this here, obviously in my studio, but I'm also going remotely to different people's not offices or homes, but to their events, because a lot of these people that I'm meeting and talking to are musicians. They love Jesus. They write songs, they rap, they love hip hop, R&B, soul, worship music. And I am going to go to them and interview them, or have them here at my studio, so we can talk about their stories and share stories, verses, therapists, and resources, so that we can help each other, and so that we can find the healing that we need. And then, of course, to pair that up with music that will help you, with apparel that will encourage you, with maybe journals or conferences, and all the stuff that goes with branding and with being an influencer, so that you can get this stuff in your Instagram feed, and you can wear your GOZO t-shirt and your GOZO hoodie, and have a GOZO conference, and have retreats where we bring artists together of all ages, so that we can be open about these things, and have conference speakers and therapists and trained people that can walk us through these topics without judgment, without guilt and shame. Maybe bring your pastor, bring your leaders, bring your parents, bring your family members, bring your husband and wife that maybe doesn't understand how you feel, that maybe does shame you, or that gives you just verses. And maybe you come to a conference, GOZOCon, I guess we call it, so they can learn more about how to support you and how to better love you, so that you can be the star and the influencer, the prophet, the evangelist, the pastor, the minister, the just the woman of God that you're supposed to be, the man of God. And so the verse that I use often is Isaiah 61, and this is my life verse along with Psalm 1. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon us, and He has anointed us to preach good news and to set captives free, to bring about the year of Jubilee. And I love that because it's about both the spiritual healing of people, but it's also about the psychological, mental, physical health of people, especially for those of us who are creatives, any age, any color, that love Jesus, that are entrepreneurial types, that are leader types, that are creatives. But we have this side of us that is beautiful, but that often is judged, overlooked, ignored, or as I said, maybe prayed away too quickly. Or perhaps we don't have even the awareness of how to pray and how to be delivered through it biblically. All of these things is what we dream of so that we can truly have joy, truly have lives of GOZO. So look forward to more content along these lines, maybe some pop-ups here in the future where we can come out to your church or to a school or to a park, some sort of outreach event, and to talk about mental health, especially among young people, creatives, and especially in terms of who I am, people of color, that we can encourage to come out, Latinos and African American, Asian, all nations, all nationalities, so that we stop hiding and that we can bring Jesus to a dying world through our unique story of GOZO amidst mental health. Or as I used to call it, finding grace through anxiety. So look forward to that. Thank you again for being here. If you would like to stay connected to this message, please follow me at davidTrig on Instagram. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.